and we're going for a drive. Yes, we're doing a one-day game here to break up our longer sessions like we had there for 15. And we're jumping into Pacific Drive, which was sent to us by Mr. Nupps to give a try as to a Subnautica vibe, survival, but you're in a car. All this kind of stuff is what's going on here. So this will be after 6 hours of play. Take from that what you will, and I'll give you a general idea of what I thought and what we got up to. So, going off, the very start of this game is really interesting. They're clearly going for a mystical, stalker-style, Chernobyl-type environment where nature has just gone off the rails completely. The physics don't work anymore. There's rocks floating everywhere. There's mysterious red mist. There's things appearing and disappearing out of reality as you are a delivery driver off to drop something off in your little car, and it all goes pear-shaped. And eventually you get sucked into this, I want to say town, but it's really more of a region. It's a region where they were doing some sort of experimentation. This is explained to you at the beginning. And it went wrong. Things are bad. And they've built an enormous giant wall around it to keep people out and to keep whatever they were doing inside. And you get dragged through like a wormhole type thing. And now you're stuck in there. You're guided by disembodied voices that will communicate to you like almost via radio, but maybe not. There's a lot of mystery as to who these people are, as whether they exist as living creatures or not. They may not. They may not. You don't encounter them, or at least I didn't, but they talk to you and they communicate, and they've been there for a very long time. And they're like, I used to be the auto mechanic here. I was the doctor who created this thing. So what happened? Are they essentially ghostly voices, or do they actually exist? I'm guessing, I'm leaning towards their ghostly voices either way. But Tobias and co will kind of point you in the direction. You need to get safe. And the general rules are explained to you. Within the realms of the wall, there are loads of regions of what they call instability. These are areas that are constantly shifting in and out of reality and changing what they look like. Essentially, that's their excuse for making RNG maps. That's their reasoning behind it, is you can visit, it'll change every time you go. And then there are areas of stability. And these stability places just stay the same all the time. So you will very quickly encounter a mechanics, a garage, where you're able to then modify the main star of the show, which is your station wagon, your car. Your car is the hero. The car will keep you safe. And as they keep pointing out, the car is your shield against the monstrosities and nightmares that exist within this world. So then the game actually begins proper of what it's supposed to be. And the general idea is that you will choose a place to go. So unlike Subnautica, it's not one continuous world. You will literally load to the area you want to go to. So you'll have highlighted areas on your map that you want to travel to, and you'll get in your car, you'll leave the garage, and then very quickly you'll hit a loading screen, and then you'll appear in the map of that region that you're currently exploring. And this will be RNG. What you see there, how the roads are laid out, where the loot is, where the buildings are, all that kind of stuff is completely random. So you can leave and go back, and it'll be different again. If you're looking to do some farming, you can do that repeatedly if you're after certain materials. And your main goal in each map, if you're not doing a story mission, is to loot the place and collect as much as you can. Collect as many resources, your scrap, your fiber, your fabrics, all these kind of normal things that you'd expect in a survival game. And then get some power resource while dealing with the ever-increasing nightmarish world you're in. And it is very atmospheric. Like, it's the biggest praise you can give this game is the atmosphere is really good. They do so much work with lighting and creating scary, tense moments. In particular, when you need to leave an area. At a certain point, in order to finish and complete the map, you will need to activate a beacon in order to leave and get to a sort of a teleport point. An interesting thing they've done is you can't activate it if you're too close to it. You can see where it's going to be, but if you try and like make an easy escape, they won't let you. You need to be a minimum distance away before you can even activate it, and then there's a race to get to it because the world, the area will literally become so unstable that it starts to collapse. Very much like a battle royale with the cloud shrinking in and shrinking the battle arena until ultimately you will die. And I wasn't aware of this because the tutorial one didn't really make that super clear, and it's very easy to get out. So when I activated it, I was like, oh no, I'm miles away. And I ended in one of the most tense moments I've had in video games in a very, very long time as the world was collapsing around me and I was driving the station wagon through this murky road to get out of there. We don't appear to have any form of acceleration. I can make it! I can make it! Hold! Hold! But that tension isn't just there. The tension is actually in what's happening. There's a lot of quote-unquote enemies. Nothing that you're actually going to fight, at least yet. But hazards, essentially, is what you're going to deal with. But they're very bizarre. To buzzsaws that travel through the floor, to eruptions that occur all the time, to weeping angel statues, which took me a while to notice, generally, that they were moving when I wasn't looking and getting closer, because they do it slowly, but it is there, and it adds to the tension because they're not particularly threatening unless you do things to them, which you don't have to. You can drive around them, you can walk around them, and it's totally fine. But if you start messing with them, they will react, and it's very spooky when it happens. It's very, very spooky. Along with some risk reward for getting resources. In particular, early game, it's the spark towers. These towers that will be drawn to you and shoot electricity at you like a Tesla coil. But they also have better loot around them. So you kind of want to take them out and deactivate them to get the better loot. And you're going to have to do some risks. So out on your maps, that's what you're doing. You're collecting a lot of resources. You're dealing with this very atmospheric, very fun game to be. And then you're going to return to the garage. And then you're going to utilize all your resources to upgrade your station wagon and make it as funky as you want. You can paint it. You can upgrade it to steel bumpers, insulated bumpers, radiation-proof bumpers, thermally electric charge-proof bumpers, side panels, stickers, colors, dashboard accessories, add extra racks to it, storage, defenses, all this kind of stuff you can strap onto the station wagon to create this like utter monstrosity by the end, I'm sure. I got quite a few upgrades, but still very early. The tech tree is actually quite large, although you do get to be a bit choosy about what you want, which I liked. It's like, what do you actually need? Do I need more car storage right now? Do I want to attach more roof racks or side panels? Not really. I'm kind of good with my inventory management right now, but you can clearly see via the tech tree that the intention is, as you move through the game, you'll be going back to the garage less and less. It'll be more a case of traveling through several maps to reach your destination. And there's good hints of that earlier on, is if I want to go to somewhere that's quite a long way away, I'm going to have to travel through one map first, and I can choose to either do that map, explore it, loot it, do whatever I want to, or I can pass through and carry on to my destination. And as you obviously have a much more viable vehicle that's sturdier, has better fuel consumption, the battery lasts longer, you've brought the proper resources with you, which is a good element of the game, very similar to you'd find in your Subnauticas, is I'm about to go on quite a journey. I need to take X and Y with me. I'm going to need spare tires. I'm going to need ways of repairing the side of the car. If it gets damaged, I'm going to need some health. I'm going to need some food. Well, thankfully, it doesn't have a constant eating and drinking requirement. So happy for that. Health is just... food is just more HP. Things like that. Medkits that you might want to take with you, and a fuel can should you need to get more fuel. Although, what I found in the early game, which was really nice, is the map probably contains the resources you need in order to get on your way. You don't need to like fully stock up every time you go out. If you just need to repair the car slightly, you'll likely find the materials to craft that out in the open. And your car has its small crafting bench with you to build that stuff. So you're fine. You can be out there pretty cozy for a while, but this game gets harder and harder. Every single map I did increased the difficulty quite dramatically, to the point where it's like, okay, now I'm in trouble and I need to fix it up. Like, my car ended up in a mess a couple of times. What's really curious that I liked about it is that this tension keeps mounting, and it's the decisions you make when you're out there versus convenience or patience. So, for example, if you are feeling a little reckless, you can maybe drive down the side of a mountain and get to your destination in maybe a few minutes quicker. there's a high chance your car's going to flip over and be destroyed if you're not really careful, which means you will need to... You can teleport the car back in. It's kind of a quirky, gamey way of doing it. If your car flips over and you haven't got the upgrades like Speed Racer to flip the car itself, which you can get later, it will teleport the car, but it's going to take significant damage because you crushed it and you messed it up. And that adds to a lot of the tension. It's a first-person driving game, but it controls very well. Downsides. There are a couple of downsides to it. I did find after about 6 hours that getting in and out of the car and moving it maybe even just 30 feet, because then something else pops up that you want to get out, can get a little annoying because ultimately when you get in the car, you have to take certain precautions. You might want to... first of all, every single time you need to put the handbrake on and you need to turn the car on and off, right? Well, let's say it's nighttime, which the weather cycle changes a lot. You can alter it in the settings, but generally speaking, it changes a lot. And the day-night cycle changes a lot. So you might have your lights on in the car, but your battery's going to drain if you leave the lights on. So getting out of the car might be like, turn the engine off, put the brake on, turn the lights off, get out of your car, go and do something, come back to your car, turn everything back on, which is, three or so clicks a time, which doesn't sound a lot, but it does if you're in a map for, I think, like my early maps, like 45 minutes a map, and that might only be visiting, say, 5 premises, but there's stuff in between that you want to do. So sometimes you're just getting out of the car, doing your thing, getting back in the car, even if it's a quick thing like a spark tower, you're going out, you're getting some plasma or whatever from there, you get back in the car, you drive 30 feet, and then there's something else. So you get out of the car again, you go and do that, you get back in the car, and then you move a little bit longer. And then you're kind of thankful for semi-long driving periods where you're like, okay. And in a collection survival game, it's a weird feeling to be like, I'm kind of glad there's nothing to collect at this point, because I keep getting in and out of the car all the goddamn time, which is a little... And they could balance that a little better, I think, with not less places, but make them a little bit more dense. Because the nicest places I found were when I found, like, entire towns to explore. Park the car in the middle, and then go and explore a whole town, come back. That was really fun, with things going on. Especially with, like, the geostorms that can kick off, which are terrifying, because your car is blowing all over the road. That's really fun, because you're like, I need to get the hell out of here real quick. But having bigger towns instead, a lot of times it's like one building, and that one building might not even be accessible, so you're just kind of looting the 3 chests or whatever that are around it, and then back in the car moving forward, etc, etc. So that was a little bit of a thing. I will also point out the quick save system, or the auto save system, not quite ideal for me. The game did crash once, and it crashed, unfortunately, which is RNG, I'm sure, but it crashed right at the end of the map. And it hadn't saved anything. When I loaded back in, it had loaded me back into the same map at the very beginning, although it had RNG'd, and now the map was completely different. So it just feels like you've lost 45 minutes. That's a lot. A regular save could be a regular autosave, maybe even just getting in and out the car or something like that would be really welcome, I think, not to lose. If you are going to do 45 minutes or an hour of a denser town, exploring and dealing with lots of hazards, collecting really good loot, and then it just has a crash or something like that, and it hasn't saved that, it's a bit of a pain. I was like, we kind of lost like an hour's worth of progress here. I mean, thankfully, it was a different map, although it was the same location, but RNG'd into a different map, like you would expect in a roguelike. It wasn't like I was doing the same thing again, exactly, but still. The story missions, though, are very weird and elaborate. By story mission 3, I was leaping off a ramp on a bridge with speed boosters into the most vicious anomaly in the area under the suggestion of the story NPCs. Very apparent that they did not have much care in the world for my well-being at that point. I was like, wow, we've never even met, and you spoke to me like 3 times, and now you have me leaping off a cliff into this. It's cool, don't get me wrong, it's cool. It's just a very, very accelerated relationship we clearly have going on here, which is interesting. And the story is what's going to be more interesting. However, I don't think people want to play this just for the story. When you play a survival game like this, and again, the same, I know I'm bringing up Subnautica a lot, but it has got a lot of similar styles to it. The exploration and doing things you want to do, like upgrade your base, are a big part of that game. It's not always about just go from A to B and be breadcrumbed every single step of the way. I know when I played, I probably spent 7 or 8 hours in that game just hunting down quartz to build glass so I could have a glass base. because I wanted to, because it looked cool, and building an overhang with floodlights and things like that, because that's a big part of that game. And it was really fun because you're out and, you know, you're in one continuous world and you can bump into other things that are part of the story. And that's not going to happen here because it's instanced. So when you do a story mission, you very specifically go to the area there's a story going to take place, and those maps are not random. They are the story maps that are predetermined. And then in between there, it's going to be like, okay, visit A, B, C, and loot them up to get more stuff, to get more upgrades. The upgrades are fun for the most part. There are things that are like just slightly better bumpers, slightly better panels. But ultimately, as you get to customize the car, and the car is a big part of the story. There's a lot of, I'll leave it here, is like there's a lot of indications that the car is like a living, breathing thing. And it will, at some point, caused me real problems, which I was definitely intrigued by. I was intrigued by it. I don't think I was intrigued enough to really continue playing, though. I think the ultimate thing that can keep you hooked here is if you like collecting and upgrading and making a really silly, fun car. That's probably going to be the extra hook you need on top of the actual story mission, because I know when I did it, the story was actually like, you should go and explore a couple of areas now before we give you the next story mission, as if you required a certain amount of upgrades before you went forward. But that might not be the case. Just to be clear on that, that might not be the case. I give the game a solid B, is where I put it in my tier list. I give this a solid B. I think it's worth a look. I think if you're into collecting and survival and looting places up, and you love this kind of atmosphere, because I do, I really enjoy this atmosphere, then this is probably right up your street. If not, maybe not. All right. Thank you so much for listening, guys. And tomorrow, another new game. Bye.